The enigma of a Messiah outside the system. What if Jesus wasn't a sacrificial lamb, but a rogue liberator? Not the bleeding figure nailed to wood, but a cosmic infiltrator who came to hack the system from the inside out. That's the Jesus of the Pistis Sophia, a being of light disguised in flesh, not to die for sins, but to wake us up from the dream we mistake for reality. He didn't plead for worship. He didn't ask for temples or golden altars. Instead, he whispered the unthinkable. The world you live in is a trap, a prison wrapped in beauty, dressed in doctrine, guarded by invisible architects who feed on your sleep. And while mainstream Christianity handed us a Messiah who saves through blood, the Gnostic Jesus offers something far more dangerous: knowledge, not book knowledge, living knowledge, the kind that burns through illusions like fire through paper. In the hidden teachings of the Pistis Sophia, Jesus descends through the layers of false heavens, not as a victim, but as a navigator. Each realm he crosses is ruled by beings who demand obedience, but he doesn't bow. He speaks passwords, breaks seals, and unlocks the way forward. He's not trying to win their favor. He's showing us how to break their rules. And here's the twist. His mission starts after the resurrection, not before. For 11 years, he teaches in secret, not on a mountain, not in a temple, but in the inner sanctum of awakened minds. That's when the real revelations begin. But what exactly did he reveal in those years the world forgot? Well, it all starts with a voice from the abyss, a cry from deep inside the matrix, a lost fragment of divine light desperately calling for help. And that voice had a name: Sophia. She wasn't screaming. She was weeping, a cry not heard with ears, but felt in the core of your being. Sophia, wisdom itself, had fallen, lost in the lower realms, wrapped in shadows and silence. And Jesus, he heard her. But this wasn't a rescue mission like in the Sunday stories. No sword, no angels, no blinding judgment. Instead, Jesus returned post-resurrection, not as a martyr, but as a decoder. He came back to reveal what really happened behind the veil of death, and not for a day or two. For 11 hidden years, he spoke not in sermons, but in secrets. He didn't preach to crowds. He met in quiet places with the few who were ready, and to them he dropped the bomb. The world wasn't just broken, it was built to keep souls trapped. In the Pistis Sophia, he exposes the architecture of the false heavens, the rulers, the watchers, the gatekeepers. They're not evil in the cartoonish sense. They're worse: blind, mechanical, and obsessed with order. They recycle souls through lifetimes, like a machine on loop, feeding off fear, guilt, and ignorance. Sophia had tried to create without permission. She reached for the light, but fell into density. Her fall wasn't sin, it was longing. And in that longing, she birthed the system we now live in, the matrix of illusions, layers of control, layers of forgetfulness, layers that keep you spinning, lifetime after lifetime, never asking why. Jesus, the awakened one, didn't descend to judge her. He descended to guide her, to remind her of who she was. And in doing that, he showed us what we've forgotten about ourselves. But to free Sophia, to truly free her, he had to face the architects of the trap, the ones known as the Archons, and they weren't going to give up their prisoners without a fight. Picture this: an invisible cage so perfect you don't even know you're inside it. No bars, no chains, just routines, beliefs, and a voice in your head that whispers, "This is just the way things are." That's the trap, that's the matrix. And according to the Gnostic texts, it wasn't built by accident, it was engineered. Enter the Archons, not demons with horns, but cosmic administrators, cold, calculated, and blind to the true light. They don't punish, they program. They don't tempt, they distract. These entities crafted layers of reality, designed to keep souls looping: birth, pain, fear, death, repeat. Their greatest trick? Making you believe you're already free. Jesus, in the Pistis Sophia, exposes it all. He maps out their realms like a hacker describing a corporate firewall, each level guarded by a different archon, each one more deceptive than the last. These beings don't just run the world. They run perception, media, religion, laws, guilt, shame. It's all them, disguised as truth. But here's the catch. The Archons didn't build this system alone. It was born from Sophia's fall, her lonely desire to create without her counterpart, without the fullness of the light. And in her confusion, she gave birth to the demiurge, the false god. A being who looked divine but had no soul, no spark, no wisdom, just power. The demiurge crafted a counterfeit reality, a simulation. And the Archons? They're his gatekeepers, his algorithms, his enforcers. They don't need your worship. They just need your silence, your numbness, your forgetfulness. And that's where Jesus comes in, not to destroy the system from the outside, but to wake you up from within it. He teaches the soul how to slip through the layers, how to outsmart the jailers, how to crack the code. But before any soul can escape, it has to remember what it truly is. And that's where Sophia's story matters most, because her fall isn't just her story. It's ours. She didn't fall from grace. She fell from curiosity, from desire, from the aching need to create, to mirror the divine spark without asking permission from the source. Sophia wasn't evil. She was us, bold, bright, and unaware of how deep the rabbit hole went. In the Pistis Sophia, she's not portrayed as a sinner. She's the symbol of divine wisdom that took a wrong turn. She tried to shape reality without the fullness of divine light, and what came from her misstep wasn't creation. It was distortion. The result? A flawed being, the demiurge, who believed himself God, and from his throne of ignorance he spun an entire universe of illusion. But Sophia, she didn't vanish. She cried out. Her voice echoed through the layers of false heavens, through time, through every soul stuck in the system. Her anguish wasn't just cosmic, it was intimate. It was familiar, because every one of us has felt that same loneliness, that same longing, that same sense of being lost in a world that doesn't quite feel like home. Jesus hears that cry, but he doesn't come to rescue the damsel. He comes to remind the goddess who she is. He finds her trapped in the 13th aeon, surrounded by shadows, attacked by powers feeding on her light, torn between guilt and hope. And what does he do? He teaches her to rise, not with force, not with violence, but with understanding, with gnosis, with step-by-step clarity on how to reclaim her light, speak the true names, and navigate through the illusions built by her own forgotten child. It's not just about Sophia, though. It never was. Her story is the blueprint for every fallen soul, every human wandering through this dream world, thinking they're broken, unworthy, disconnected, and that's why Jesus begins mapping the way out. A path hidden, not in scriptures or temples, but locked behind cosmic gates, each sealed with codes, sounds, and secrets, each one waiting for a soul brave enough to remember. You ever get the feeling that something's off? Like you're meant for more, but can't quite reach it? That sensation isn't random. It's the echo of a locked door, a door you once walked through and forgot how to open. In the Pistis Sophia, Jesus doesn't hand out vague promises of heaven. He gives coordinates. He speaks of realms, real structured layers of existence stacked like levels in a game, but each level is guarded. Not by angels in robes, but by cosmic gatekeepers, each one demanding a password. Yeah, you heard that right. Literal passwords. To ascend through these layers, the soul must speak the right names. Not names like Peter or Paul. These are ancient sounds, vibrations that match the frequency of divine truth. They're like spiritual encryption keys, unlocking the gates of the aeons. And if you don't have them, you get bounced back. Recycled, rebooted into the game, another life, another forgetful round. But how do you get those codes? That's where Jesus becomes more than a teacher. He becomes a guide through the cosmic firewalls. He doesn't just tell you what the seals are. He teaches why they exist. These seals aren't punishments. They're safeguards. They only let through what's real, what's awake, what remembers. And that's the real challenge. Not speaking the name, but being the frequency behind it. So, imagine this. The soul stands before a radiant gate, confronted by a force that demands proof, not of piety, but of purity, not of obedience, but of inner light. And only those who've faced their own shadows, peeled back their own illusions, can pass. But not everyone's ready to hear this. Not everyone wants the truth. Even among Jesus' closest followers, some doubted, some resisted, some wanted a kingdom built on power, not passwords. And that's when the real test of his disciples began. He didn't gather scholars. He didn't choose saints. Jesus called misfits, flawed, emotional, stubborn humans, not because they were perfect, but because they were real. And once the teachings got deeper, once the truth got heavier, that's when the cracks started to show. Peter wanted structure, rules. He kept asking for clear answers, black and white. James doubted everything. Thomas asked for proof. But Mary Magdalene didn't need logic. She felt the fire. Her questions weren't rooted in fear. They were born from deep knowing. And Jesus, he saw that. He didn't speak to them in straight lines. He dropped riddles, wrapped truths in symbols, not to confuse, but to awaken. Because real gnosis isn't handed to you. It's uncovered, bit by bit, like a treasure hidden in your own chest. That's what separated them. Some clung to the idea of Jesus as a king, a Messiah, a figure to follow and worship. But that's not what he came for. He didn't want fans. He wanted mirrors. People ready to look within and remember who they were before the programming, before the fear, before the veil dropped over their eyes. He told them stories about seeds and lamps, coins and gates, not because they were cute, but because truth wrapped in metaphor slips past the inner guard. It sneaks into the soul, and the ones who caught it, they began to shift. But there was a problem. Not all disciples were ready to let go of the old world. Some still needed a savior, someone to carry the burden, someone to blame when the truth got uncomfortable. And that's when Jesus changed the focus. He stopped talking about kingdoms and started talking about light, a light hidden inside, a flame the archons feared, because once it ignites, it spreads. It's not out there, it's in you, that quiet flicker behind your ribs, pulsing beneath the noise. That's the light, the real you, the one the system can't touch. And the archons, they don't want you to know it exists. In the Pistis Sophia, Jesus makes one thing crystal clear. Salvation isn't handed down, it's lit from within. The soul carries a spark of the infinite, buried beneath layers of fear, trauma, and programming. The archons don't need to chain your body, they just need to dim that spark, keep you distracted, guilty, obedient, safe inside the maze. Because when that light wakes up, game over. That's why they built this world like a mirror maze, full of shiny distractions, false identities, and looping beliefs. They don't fight with swords, they fight with ideas, with false stories that keep you from your own source. But Jesus didn't come to fit into those stories. He came to burn them down. He taught his disciples how to recognize the light, not just feel it, but embody it, speak from it, act from it. Because when a soul remembers its origin, it starts vibrating differently. You stop reacting. You start seeing. You walk through chaos with clarity. That's when the matrix glitches. That's when the archons panic. And that's when religion, mainstream, polished institutional religion, stepped in to contain the fire. They couldn't erase the light, so they replaced it with rituals, with hierarchy, with fear masked as holiness. They turned the inner flame into a golden idol, something to admire, not ignite. But the Gnostics remembered. They kept the fire hidden, whispering its secrets from mouth to ear, from dream to dream. And Jesus, he kept pushing, not for followers, but for awakeners. Because once you hold that flame in your chest, you're ready for the knowledge they tried to bury. The forbidden truths that shatter the chains, the gnosis they feared you'd find. They didn't burn books because they were boring. They burned them because they were dangerous. Gnosis wasn't just a fancy word for knowledge. It was the kind of truth that doesn't sit on a shelf. It shakes you. It rewires the soul. It flips the script. And the moment you feel it, not just understand it, your entire world begins to unravel. That's why Jesus didn't come preaching rules. He came revealing realities, the kind that make the priests nervous and the temples tremble, the kind that says, "You are not broken, you are not fallen, you are simply asleep." And awakening? That's the true rebellion. In the Pistis Sophia, every parable, every teaching is a breadcrumb, not toward heaven but toward memory, the memory of where you came from before this world got its claws in you. And the Gnostic Jesus doesn't beg for belief, he challenges perception. He doesn't offer salvation through sacrifice, he offers escape through awareness. But awareness isn't safe, it's not comfortable. It ruins illusions, it costs relationships, it sets fire to everything fake you ever clung to. No wonder the archons tried to bury it. No wonder the early church scrubbed it from history, because it doesn't build empires. It builds liberated minds. And that was the real threat. So when Jesus mapped out the false heavens, when he named the archons and revealed their traps, he wasn't creating a new religion. He was dismantling the old ones, not with swords or sermons, but with gnosis, direct transmission. A knowing so deep, it feels like remembering something ancient inside your bones. But even with the map in hand, even with the spark reignited, you still have to face what's shaping your reality, the mirror between your soul and the world. What if the world around you isn't happening to you, but through you? That's what Jesus reveals in the Pistis Sophia, that this so-called reality is less like a stage and more like a mirror. Every fear you haven't faced, every belief you inherited but never questioned, every unhealed wound, it's all projected outward. And the matrix, it feeds on those reflections. It doesn't need to control you directly. It just needs to keep your attention trapped. The archons aren't hiding behind clouds. They're coded into your habits, your impulses, your fears. They whisper through your doubt. They echo in your need to fit in, to play small, to survive instead of awaken. But here's the twist. If the world is a mirror, then every glitch, every crack, every painful moment, it's a message, a clue, a signal that something deep within is misaligned. And that's the doorway. Jesus taught that true transformation doesn't start outside, not with rituals, not with dogmas, but with a radical inward gaze, a burning question, who am I when I stop believing everything I was told? That's when the mirror starts to bend. That's when reality starts to respond to something higher. He wasn't handing out magic tricks. He was teaching you to become conscious, to step out of reaction and into remembrance. Because when you stop living on autopilot, when you stop seeing yourself as a victim of fate, the archons lose their grip. But to reach that level of clarity, you have to die. Not physically, not in some grand theatrical sense, but the ego, the false self, that's got to go. Because there's a deeper resurrection waiting, and it starts with the crucifixion no one sees. No nails, no thorns, no blood-soaked drama. The real crucifixion, it happens inside, quiet, relentless, unseen by the crowd. Jesus didn't come to die for you. He came to show you how to die to the illusion. And the first thing that has to go is the ego, the voice that says, I am this body, this name, this story. It's the mask, the role you've been rehearsing your whole life without even realizing it's just a part. In the Pistis Sophia, resurrection isn't a reward, it's a result. The result of dissolving what you're not so you can remember what you are. That divine spark, it can't rise as long as the false self is clinging to control. That's why Jesus didn't just resurrect. He disappeared from the system, slipped between the cracks. He became light again. The ego fears this because it knows the truth will burn it down. It survives by keeping you small, reactive, offended, addicted to being right. But Gnosis, that's the fire. It shows you that none of your pain, none of your pride, none of your titles or traumas define you. The death Jesus modeled wasn't about martyrdom. It was initiation. He faced betrayal, abandonment, humiliation, not to suffer, but to transcend, to show that when everything external is stripped away, the light remains untouched, untouchable. And that light, it's in you, buried, waiting, glowing beneath the rubble of your false self. But shedding that skin isn't easy. It means walking straight into the unknown, blindfolded, trusting something deeper than thought. It's the death that opens the real gate, not to a kingdom in the sky, but to the silence within, the still space where the real voice speaks. And when you hear it, when you finally recognize its tone, you're ready to walk the path Jesus kept for the few, the hidden path, meant only for the ones who could hold revelation in silence. Not everyone was meant to hear it. Jesus didn't broadcast his deepest teachings from mountaintops. He whispered them behind closed doors, in hidden places, to the few who were ready to carry the weight of truth without running back to the comfort of lies. The Pistis Sophia is filled with these secret sessions, moments where he pulls aside those who dared to question the script, not the ones seeking miracles, not the ones craving status, the ones burning with hunger to remember. He didn't spoon-feed them, he tested them, he answered questions with riddles. He dropped symbols like breadcrumbs and watched to see who would follow them without demanding a shortcut. Because this path, it's not about being saved, it's about seeing past the surface, past the noise, past the puppet strings. This is why he taught in layers, each revelation wrapped in another, like codes buried in dream logic. The truth had to wake the soul, not entertain the mind, and only those who'd already tasted silence could hear the depth beneath his words. Initiation wasn't a ritual, it was a breaking. The initiate had to let go of identity, of security, of certainty. That's why most turned back. It's easier to follow a savior than to become what you truly are. Easier to kneel than to walk barefoot through your own shadows. But those who stayed, they started to glow, not with power, but with presence. They walked through the matrix, untouched by its illusions. The archons couldn't see them anymore. They were off-grid, running on light, not fear. And it was for them, the quiet rebels of the soul, that Jesus saved the final teaching, the truth that can't be spoken, only transmitted, from silence to silence, from eye to eye. But before he could reveal it, he had to show them the last and oldest illusion, the one hidden not in the heavens or the systems, but deep inside the source they all forgot. You weren't cast out. You left, not in rebellion, not in shame, but in a moment of wonder, like Sophia, chasing the dream of creation, forgetting for just one breath where you came from. And that forgetfulness, it became a world, a system, a cycle. It became this. But Jesus, in the Pistis Sophia, didn't come to punish the forgetting. He came to reverse it, to guide souls back, not to religion, not to dogma, but to the source, the real source, the silent ocean beyond the archons, beyond the aeons, beyond even form itself. He didn't point up, he pointed in. Because the true kingdom isn't above your head, it's behind your thoughts, beneath your fears, buried in stillness. It's not a place you go after death, it's a state you return to when you finally stop believing the lies the Matrix taught you to love. The final veil isn't out there, it's the belief that you're separate from what you're seeking, and when that belief dies, you don't float into the clouds, you merge with everything you've ever been. The source doesn't greet you like a god. It remembers you as itself. That's the awakening Jesus mapped out, not a rescue mission, a reunion. And if this message sparked something in you, if something inside you whispered yes while the world around you said no, then maybe, just maybe, you're ready to step beyond the veil. So share this video with someone who's starting to remember. Click that like button to keep this light in motion, and don't forget to follow the channel, because this was just one layer. There's more to uncover. Much more.